Welcome to the 68th episode of Indie and Music Industry World. Ladies and gentlemen, Cassandra.
Hello,
Hello,
Cassandra.
Davide. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you as well. Thank you for letting us reschedule here. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
you're amazing, and you're Italian
Thank you.
too, so that's more thing
Thank you.
too. Congrats so much for your amazing talent. Do you wanna start telling me about your musical background? How did you start? How did you understand about your voice and your approach
Yeah,
with opera?
absolutely. Yeah. So I began singing, honestly, as soon as I could speak. It was like kind of the first day I could hold a melody, I started singing right out of the gate. But when I was about 11 years old, I started actually training in opera. And it was just one of those things that when I was growing up, my parents were very straightforward about, listen, we want you to sing, but we want you to learn how to sing with really great technique first, and then do whatever you want to do with it from there. And I just fell in love with it. And so I was doing musical theater, and I cut one pop song when I was 12 or 13. But opera was kind of that consistent thing that I always was doing and was moving forward with. So I continued that, was doing competitions, auditioned for college, and then ended up actually going to college for opera. And I loved it. I love how it feels to sing opera. I love the art form. But something was missing still for me. And so it was right around COVID that I started saying, okay, I got to get serious about not just what am I being told I should do more of, or what feels right, but what do I actually want to do? So I started writing songs, and I started
Yeah.
recording songs. And it was during COVID, I traveled to Nashville and then cut my first EP.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, which is the right moment when you decided to create a new style of music, to create some the popera, that it's a new gen totally, and it's blowing totally.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
So I was in my senior year of college, and I'd been releasing some music, a lot of pop, R&B, and I just kind of felt like I had these two worlds that weren't really overlapping yet. And every time I would talk to somebody in the industry, they just say, okay, at some point you're gonna have to choose. You can't do both full throttle forever. And I didn't really want to accept that. And so it was in my senior year that I started realizing, what? I need to do something about this. I need to make a different sound, and maybe I can actually just blend both my worlds and embrace all parts of myself, both musically and just as who I am as a person. So I started working on that, and then went actually on to do my master's at Barklee College of Music online. And I did my entire thesis on this concept of, could there be some crossover that would allow us to pull the classical audience into the pop art audience and vice versa. So I just kind of got to work. I hopped in a room with one of my good friends and producers, Adam Sickler, as well as my other two writers, Brian Ruby and Dan Harrison, for that project. And we ended up writing Queen of Every Night. And we actually did 2 or 3 passes before we landed on a sound that we loved. And that kind of was the start of that process, where it became, okay, how much opera is too much? How much pop is too much? How much thematic parallel do we want to create? And it's been a really beautiful process, I think, of trying to find what is that sound and what could it possibly be in the future too.
Yeah, how much it's hard to create the perfect track, and balance from pop elements to opera elements too, in a production.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work and a lot of creative freedom. So I've been working mainly with Adam Sickler and Nikki Flores, as well as my friend Jason Thram, and all 3 of them have really just tackled this project with no limits. It's been amazing to see, part of it is trying to figure out, okay, first of all, do we write starting with the aria, which is any solo piece from an opera, or are we starting from the pop song?
Okay.
And I've kind of created from both directions with the different producers. So in particular with Adam Sickler, so if you listen to Queen of Every Night, if you listen to Carmen,
Yeah.
Those started with the original operatic melody. So I sang the Queen of the Night aria, and then we were like, all right, if we loop this throughout a track, what are we gonna, like, what could this become? How could we make this work? And then, of course, went into Pachelbel's canon for that bridge. Carmen, same thing, that habanera theme, that exact melody is what we used for the chorus. We just turned it pop, and then ended up actually bringing in the legitimate aria in that bridge as well. On the other hand, I have things like Kiss My Ring and Prima Donna, where we wrote the full pop song, produced it up, and then I went from there and said, okay, what opera arias do I want to kind of place in here, and where and how can we tuck that into certain pockets of it? So it's been a really, really fascinating process of seeing which one's more effective, which one's more efficient.
Totally.
Yeah.
The last thing is that every track sounds different. How do you challenge yourself to keep evolving on this, as to create every time a different beat and different sound and melody? It's not easy.
No, it's not. And I think part of it is trying to pull a lot from who I listen to and say, okay, this month I was listening to a lot of, let's say, Lady Gaga, but the next month I'm listening to a ton of Christina Aguilera. The next month I'm listening to a lot of Beyonce. What can I do to maybe challenge myself to write something more in that vein? And I'll often write 5 different versions of a song before I go ahead and actually create that one. So I think part of it too is it's trial and error. It's catch and release. You have to write 20 songs before you have one that you're going, that's the single, that's the next one that I really want to drop.
Yeah.
So I'm excited with the music I have coming up actually later this year, and as well as in the throughout.
I cannot wait to listen. Yeah, how's your writing process? You start with an idea, with a melody. Every time is different for every artist, I know. So
yeah. So I definitely sit first with ideas where it doesn't matter what time or where I am. It could be 3 a.m. when I'm half asleep, or I could be just walking around through the grocery store. But if I have an idea, I'm immediately typing lyrics into my notes page, recording little voice memos of melody ideas that come up. But I do love sitting with a really rough track. So sometimes we'll have, maybe it's just the beat and like a light instrumental pad or 2 inside this track.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit with it and kind of say, okay, I've just actually had a session the other day with a friend where all we do is we sit there and we listen to the track a few times through, and we say, okay, go for it. And you just freestyle 2 or 3 full songs over it. And you're not even really saying words, you're kind of making syllables, whatever. And you pass the mic and you give it to your friend. You're like, all right, what do you think? Well, you try something now. And, and then you go back and you listen bit by bit and say, okay, I liked this part. I want this part from over here. I want this part from that take. And before you know it, you at least have a base for, what could that melody look like? What could it sound like? Or you have the base for what it could become. So that's a lot of it too, is starting from the track and working my way up. I used to, especially when I was living in Nashville, do a lot of, I like to call it the campfire style. So you start with just guitar and chords, and you just try to write the bare bones of the song. I've learned there's a very different process, Nashville to LA. LA really likes to start with the track, get that vibe from the get-go. And then if you can strip it down, awesome, but start with that full vibe. So it's been a fun process, kind of challenging myself to still do both, because even if I'm writing for other artists, I want to be able to tackle either style. But yeah, it's an unclear answer because there's really no clear method. It's kind of a start down one path, and if you veer off another, then that's, I guess, how we get to.
How much is hard to maintain your vocal range as a practice? How much is hard to maintain your vocal range? What kind of practice you gotta do? Yeah.
So I do train pretty much daily. I try to sing for a minimum of 30 minutes a day. Actually, a lot of my training recently has become sort of a physical act at the same time. So a lot of my live shows, of course, incorporate a lot of dance. So we're doing hip hop dance, and it's full out. There is no stop. And especially a lot of my shows have been in Nashville. It's hot. And so if you're not in that cardiovascular shape to really be able to sing through it, it can be quite challenging, and you can get quite winded on stage. So a lot of my practice lately has been physical, whether that's running on the treadmill and singing, whether that's going through circuit training and trying to sing through that. I've also found it an interesting challenge to see how just offsetting your own personal core can change so much about how the voice wants to interact. So working hard on that to see how can I still be gentle with the voice while completing either a dance routine or a fitness routine or whatever else. But my training is based in opera, so everything for me is breath control. I actually run a vocal studio on the side just to help me fund all the music that I'm doing. It's a lot of fun to see how all of this opera training, people often say, how do you flip back and forth between the two? And to me, it's like flipping a switch. I won't get into the nitty gritties of, the soft palette and the support system and everything else, but there are very specific pathways that both sounds kind of travel through. And to be able to hone in on that, I think that's the most work that I do actually at this point in my training is, okay, start in an operatic style and in the same note flip to pop style.
No, I've seen your performances, I said, okay, she's amazing. How much is hard to switch the mindset from, just like the Nashville operas, from the pop stages that are totally two different worlds, and you did it incredible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
They are drastically different. The pop music scene, it is raw, it is edgy, and the classical music scene is refined and structured. And I think the hardest thing for me actually is going from that classical persona, which it's, when you're on stage, you're poised, you're staged. There's really not much dance going on, but there's certainly no big, bold movements. And then to go onto a pop stage and when I'm not dancing, still say, okay, I can't go back into like recital mode and, lock up. I have to stay free and loose and stay in this style of music now. It's a stage presence thing, I think is the hardest for me. But I've been amazed, honestly, to see how people in both the classical and pop communities have supported me doing
classical and pop.
both.
And you dance too. That's the hardest part too, that makes you just like on a high level totally. How much is hard to combine the dance too,
Yeah. So I'm so grateful. I've been working with Marissa Mullally, who fantastic choreographer. And there's something about her style that just fits my music. It really, her choreography is different. It's not ordinary. It's edgy, but it also, it's an element of weird that my music has, where you're going, these two things, they almost aren't supposed to go, and yet they work perfectly together. And I think her choreography just is so that there's a little bit of avant-garde mixed with hip-hop, mixed with this, edgy, almost jazz funk thing. So it's been a lot of fun working together and choreographing all these pieces together and just getting the rehearsals down.
I was, just like I had a big impact with your videos too. How much is hard to represent your music into the visual part, and just like to create a video that really represents your music.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been tough. There are a lot of elements to it, everything from color scheme to the outfits. I thrift pretty much every single thing that you see in those videos, or try to find them in whatever affordable nature that I can. But it takes a lot of hours of Pinterest boarding things and then hunting through it to say, okay, how am I going to create a visual aspect that says it's sophisticated, but it's in your face? It's classical, but it's still edgy. What colors say that? What neckline says that? How am I going to change up this outfit every single show that I do and find something cohesive that says all together? I tried the opera thing, the opera wig thing.
Yeah.
That wig nearly flew off that stage. I was like, I cannot do this again. I'm just going to use my own hair. And
I'll use so heavy.
It was so heavy. Oh my gosh. I tried to one time put, so ridiculous. I had an opera wig and I tried to put these little gems.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I did one, my choreographer Marissa loves a good head pop. And so I popped my head and all of these gems went off the side and at my other dancer. I was like, okay, all right, we can't do this anymore. I'm gonna start throwing wigs at people, unfortunately. So yeah, change that up. And I'm working to, I think that's part of it too, is it's always evolving. There's never a time when I'm like, this is the only thing that I'm gonna wear and we're done. It's, even you'll see in the music coming out next year, there's a little bit of a shift. The colors are gonna shift. The ambiance is gonna shift a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, and all the vocals are gonna get bigger with that too, which I'm really, really excited to share with everybody.
I cannot wait. You know, you won the John Lennon songwriting contest. You know, did you feel it like something like a pressure or maybe a motivation thing that makes you go on? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's funny, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, I, for the first time, hired a booking agent. And while we were having our intro call, she said, so why do you do all of this? You know, why Popera and this blend? And I was telling her, it really comes back to what made me start this in the first place, which is I've always felt like my life was kind of split into two different realms. On one end, I was this reserved classical singer and I was very trained and that was one part of me. And then there's this other part of me that was, I used to be a sports athlete. I used to play a lot of tennis. I used to be, you know, I love being in the studio. I love pop music. I love that over the top, in your face. It's art. It's fierce. It's edgy. It's, you know, I love it. And I always felt like I had to keep those on separate planes. Like I couldn't be both of them all at once. And then I started thinking about how many other people feel like they also have to have almost this double life, like hide a part of themselves to make people in one space feel comfortable and only get to share another part of themselves at another time. It just became pretty clear to me quickly that if I didn't do this, I would never feel like I'm giving back to those people that feel in similar and different ways, I'm sure, the way that I feel. So I think when you ask what is it that pushes me forward, it's like I really do believe that I have a mission to help people feel really encouraged to like embrace their own dichotomy, is how I like to say it. Be all of yourself at once. You don't have to keep them separate. You could just be all of it. And the people that are right for you will bring you back in. So my music is a message of that. And every single time I get a little tired.
I was curious because you started for advocacy as a mental health, and that's amazing. How do you see music as a tool for healing?
Yes. I think music is the greatest escape, honestly. I can think of so many times when either I've been having a bad day and kind of wanted to just sit in it and cry a little bit, or had a bad day and really needed to get uplifted, or needed motivation, or needed joy, anything, any emotion that you are searching for, you can usually find in music. And it's this universal language, whether it's instrumental or vocal, it doesn't really matter. I just think that it is the most powerful sonic tool to help people take a step back from their own personal lives and say, okay, not only am I feeling the way that I'm feeling, but there's some other person out there that felt the exact same way and wrote a song about it. And millions of people listen to that song, which must mean that millions of people also feel the same way that I'm feeling, and suddenly I'm not so alone. And to me, I think that's the crux of healing, is just not feeling so alone in whatever that emotion is that you're feeling. So I love music. I love that it can do that. I love that I know my music has done that for people, and I love knowing there's so many artists that have done that for me. Yeah, I think that's how music heals. It brings people together.
Amazing. You know, which is your message that you want that people take from your music?
My message is to embrace every single part of yourself and never feel like one part has to be tucked away to make space for the other. If you live to your fullest self every single day, the people that are meant for you will find you. And that might mean that you have to let some people go along the way, or you lose some people along the way, and that's okay. It wasn't for you, but you deserve that peace.
Yeah. Have you planned to release an album right now, or an EP, that includes all your songs?
Yes, so I am releasing an EP. My hope is to wrap that by the end of this year. I have 2 more songs actually that I'm sending out for mix later today. So if I have those completed, I'll wrap that this year and release the Prima Donna EP in full this
Yeah.
year.
I hope you can just like tour too, because your image is, you great on stage, and it's
Thank
really
you.
hard. You're on eye level, so hope you can travel around, tour around Europe and US here too. You got all
Yes,
my
yes.
support. Absolutely, you're
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you very, very much. I so appreciate it. And I would love to be doing even further tours as well. I plan to. My plan is to actually start building that as of later this year. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much for our interview. You absolutely got my support for everything. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate
Yeah, absolutely. You deserve
it.
it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a good
I
day.
really appreciate it. You as well.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.